everyone, and welcome to the Popcorn Bucket List, the podcast that keeps your movie bucket list up to date because those 1,000 movies to see before you die lists are just too daunting. I'm your host and resident horror film buff, Gracie, and with me is Darrell, your foreign film connoisseur, and Sarah, the resident Wes Anderson fan.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Darrell.
Hey guys.
So we're in episode 1 and we're going to have some kinks, and that's okay. Everyone does. But I wanted to tell our audience a little bit about ourselves. My name is Gracie and I am a horror film lover, obviously. And the last film I saw in theaters was Underwater, the movie with Kristen Stewart. And it was like the Alien knockoff, but it was still pretty good. I really liked it. I mean, I could have had Sarah's last movie in theaters. Sarah, tell us something.
Yeah, mine was Sonic the Hedgehog, which was terrible, but also better than I was hoping for, actually.
I like that. I actually watched it a few months ago. I enjoyed it more than I thought. It's so weird. It's a bizarre movie.
I haven't watched it yet, but I keep meaning to, because aren't they making a sequel?
Yeah.
Yeah, they left the ending very open. It was no Detective Pikachu, though.
Oh, I love Detective Pikachu. It was so good. All right, Darrell, what was the last film you saw in theaters?
Let's see. The last one I saw, I've actually seen a couple in theater. For the last one I saw before quarantine really happened was actually Ford v Ferrari. So I actually saw a good movie. I was really happy about that.
Was that when we were trying to binge all the Oscar movies before the Oscars last year?
Yeah, that's exactly
I only watched one. And everybody else got to see all of them. But I was like, I saw Parasite. I'm fine.
You saw the best one. There's no point. Just throw everything else away.
I was like, I'm done. So I think I saw Parasite twice in theaters. That was how much I liked it. But so we all are from film backgrounds. We all studied film. We've done all sorts of things. But really what it boils down to is we all just love talking about movies. And that's what we really want to do here. What was something like you've been saying you wanted to watch and you finally got to watch during quarantine?
Let's see. Well, I know one was Mrs. Doubtfire, because y'all actually showed me Mrs. Doubtfire, and I was like, wow, this movie is like had an oddly realistic ending for this type of film.
It's not a happily ever after ending.
It's not. It really isn't. I guess I expected to be like, oh, just some silly shenanigans at the end, and it ended like, oh, okay, it's like, no, you don't get your kids.
No. Spoiler alert. Oh wait, it came out like 22 years ago.
Yeah.
I think maybe
if you
like
haven't seen it by now,
2-year spoiler alert thing.
There we go.
That's fair. 2 years.
2 years. Okay, so if you haven't seen Mrs. Doubtfire, spoiler alert, doesn't get the kids.
Yeah, he gets to see them, but he doesn't get them back.
Yeah. It's a lighthearted ending, but it's sombering, which is kind of nice, I guess, and refreshing. I feel like a lot of the comedies that we get today all have to have this like silly, whimsical ending.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a serious comedy that I've seen recently.
Yeah, it's kind of hard it's just not a thing that's really done anymore. Because that was something that was kind of commonplace, I think, in the 90s, is that, you could have your silly film, but it's like, oh, it's going to end like as a movie is supposed to end, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I was still surprised, though, because I guess I'm used to seeing like 2020 comedies, where it's just like, it's stupid for the sake of stupid, but that's fine too. Everything has its place.
Mm-hmm. Sarah?
I actually watched Braveheart for the first time a few weeks ago. I've got a scratch off 100 essential movies poster, and although I don't really agree with all of the movies on it, Braveheart was one of them, and I'm kind of upset that it took me that long to watch it because I really loved it. It was so depressing and so great, but yeah,
I had to watch Braveheart for high school.
I did too.
Yeah, it was like one of those films that like our history teacher was always like, oh, watch this one. I watched a lot of great movies because of my history teacher, But like Master and Commander, I don't know if you guys had ever seen that one. That
I've
one's
always wanted to watch that for some
it's
reason.
No, I
Paul
haven't seen it.
Bettany and oh, I'm picturing him. I'm the one with the iPad. I should be the one. It's the guy who can't sing, Master, and the one in Les
Russell
Mis.
Crowe.
Russell Crowe. Thank you.
Okay,
Russell
that's all you
Crowe.
have to say. Can't sing.
So it's I've been thinking about Master and Commander because everybody's like, oh, how did I meet Paul Bettany? And everybody's like talking about Vision, like seeing him in WandaVision or in Avengers. And I was like,
A
I
Knight's
met
Tale.
him. Yeah. And somebody like, oh, A Knight's Tale. And I'm like, I watched him in Master and Commander. Like, that's it. And now I'm like really questioning, like, okay, I also saw him. I was like, who's in A Beautiful Mind? Because that's another weird one that I think I had to watch for high school.
Also Russell Crowe. So.
Russell Crowe, and who is the other?
And other acting person. I do not know. I actually haven't seen A Beautiful
Paul
Mind.
Bettany. I was right.
Oh, there you go. There he is.
All right. So you saw Braveheart. Anything else you saw that was pretty exciting?
I mean, I've been watching movies every week, but that was like kind of my only one that it was like, why haven't I seen this yet movie? But I've been watching a lot of new movies, I guess, and yeah, mostly that. Oh, and I caught up on like all of the Ghibli movies because of HBO Max. I watched all the ones I hadn't seen.
Nice.
Interesting. Oh, Bridesmaids. That's it.
Nice.
I'd never seen Bridesmaids, and
really?
I got engaged in quarantine, and I guess married in quarantine, but whatever. And my sister and my maid of honor, Sarah, were really upset that I had never seen Bridesmaids, and they were like, you have to watch it. And I was engaged for like 5 days, and they were like sat me down and made me watch Bridesmaids. And I think it was because it was like one of those movies everybody was obsessed with and quoting when it came out. And I just was like, I feel like I've seen the movie already, like. But I actually really, really enjoyed that one, and I'm glad I watched it because it definitely encapsulates a lot in a wedding.
Yeah, that's a perfect movie to watch just before you get married.
Also kind of sombering. It's got a lot of comedic parts, and then you realize like, oh, she's super lonely. And you're like, man, like she sucks as a character, and it like kind of sucks the whole movie for so now that we're kind of in the main chunk of things, this is where I'm kind of gonna pass it along to Sarah here. We're gonna talk about our top 5 favorite films of all time. Now, I know this is kind of crazy way to do like a bucket list thing, but we decided to pick top 5 films of all time. And then we realized that that's like the hardest thing to do in the whole wide world because they change every 2 months practically. If you'd asked me a year ago what my top 5 was, it would have been different. So I think we're going to call this top 5 first recommendations from each of us for your bucket list. So Sarah, take it away.
All right. I'll stress that this is in no particular order because that's even harder than picking 5 is putting those 5 in a particular order. So I guess I'll start out fun. My first recommendation is going to be Scott Pilgrim versus the World, directed by Edgar Wright. I think that he is brilliant. I love the way that he edits to music. I love his cuts. And I think he was the most perfect pick to turn a comic book into a movie. I actually saw a YouTube video today, and he was supposed to direct Ant-Man, but him and Disney had some differences, and he was like, yeah, I wanted to make a Marvel movie, but they didn't want to make an Edgar Wright movie. And that really bums me out because I think that would have been amazing. But yeah, Scott Pilgrim is just a blast. I mean, the story is what it is. I love it, but to each their own. But like the filmmaking, the behind the scenes is like hilarious and great, and I love the heck out of that movie.
I love Scott Pilgrim also. It's one of those movies where it came out of nowhere for me. I didn't know anything about it. I remember going to the movies and it just kind of like I just walked in, I walked into the theater and I was like, I'm gonna watch this movie. I forgot what it was. And I walked out and I was like, oh, I've never seen the Scott Pilgrim thing. I'm gonna walk in here. Walked in halfway through and I was like, whoa, this movie is so good. So I had to stay so I could watch the movie play again so I could watch the first half. And I was like, this is amazing. This is great. It's one of those weird movies where you watch and you're just like, wow, how does this how do you make something like that? I think about the script a lot and it's like, how do you write this script? But it's just like the comic. I started reading it like last year and I was like, it's just like the comic. It's like almost exactly like it. It's insane. I
Quippy.
love it.
It's fast.
Yeah.
And like I've seen some crazy like fun facts about it. Like one of them is that like they barely blink in the movie so that it seems more like a comic book. So there's only like a few times you like see actors blink. Like that's crazy.
It's one of those films that I feel like the more I watch it, the more I appreciate it, because I didn't really pay any mind to it when it came out. And then I think I probably watched it a couple years later and like was like, man, like this is filled with like awesome like fight choreography scenes, and then also Chris Evans, which is kind of fun, you know.
Yeah.
And
There
some
are 3
really
superheroes in that movie.
yeah, and honestly badass women. Like the whole cast is just bam 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 bam. And then Brie Larson, we get Brie Larson in it, and no, like she's not even somebody yet, and then she like comes out and starts singing her song, and you're like, oh my god, like this is how you write female superhero characters almost, and in its own way, I guess. So, all right, Darrell, what's one of your top 5?
Let's see. I think I'm gonna go with Empire Strikes Back. That's like I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so like Empire Strikes Back is like, it is, the cream of the crop there. It's the best Star Wars movie ever. And it's one of those interesting things where I'd never seen it in theaters before until about maybe I guess 3 months ago. Because theater trying to get people back into theater, so they're just going to show random movies. So for the first time I saw it, and that was the first time I really realized, like, wow, this is not just like a great Star Wars movie, it's a great movie, period, because it makes me love these characters. Like I find it interesting because A New Hope, of course, you love the character when you watch A New Hope. It's like, oh, these are really interesting people, but they're not fleshed out like at all. But when you watch Empire, everybody feels it feels very, very clear who these people are and what they are trying to do. And it's just one of those amazing screenwriting things. You're like, wow, how did they make what were effectively just archetypes into actual full blown people? A big thing about the original movie was that they would talk about, oh man, like this dialogue, how do you say this dialogue? It doesn't make any sense. And then you watch Empire and it's like, it feels so natural though. They like everything feels so much more natural. Some of the silly elements of dialogue feel like things people would actually say. And of course the movie is just like an awesome adventure. It's a great a great example of the hero's journey. And it has standout performances by, Mark Hamill acting against a puppet of Yoda. And you think like, man, how does this guy act against this puppet and still like do such an amazing job? It's just, it's an incredibly iconic movie. If you haven't seen it, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if you know the twist at the end of that movie. I know
Don't ruin it. Don't,
yeah,
that's
I
a
don't want
spoiler,
people to
I think.
know. Yeah, like we can't. That's like the number one we can't talk about is the end of Empire Strikes Back. I'm sorry if you wanted to know, but go watch it, please. I beg of you.
I actually know people who haven't. Like, I know like a lot of people who were just like, I never saw it. It wasn't something that I was into. And I was like, how can you have gone? I mean, we're all in our late 20s. And I was like, how can you go into like 30s not having seen at least one Star Wars movie? Like not even like scenes. Like he was like, no, I don't get that reference. And I was like, that's like, I think I made a I don't like stand joke or like something stupid. And he was like, I yeah, no. And had no interest because he was like, that's a lot of years to catch up on. I'm like, no, it's worth it. Like you need to watch it just because it's part of our history in a weird way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I think that's something that people don't really. It's weird because like my mom is one of those people who's she'll never watch Star Wars. Like it's just not my thing. And it's like, okay, fine, whatever. I guess you're missing out. But it is something where like it's such a huge cultural touchstone that you have to watch it just so you can be like, yeah, I'm part of the culture. I am assimilated into America fully by watching The Empire Strikes Back. Like I always think that Star Wars is one of those things that, I don't want to get into the controversy of the new movies, but it's like when it came out, it was kind of like the great equalizer in terms of movies. It's like everybody could get on board with that. Everyone's like, oh yes, this thing right here is amazing. So I mean, yeah, that's the reason why you should watch it, because you aren't a true American unless you've watched Star Wars, in my
Dang,
opinion.
we're coming at your citizenship.
Exactly. Running
And
hot
if you're
today.
not American, you're fine, I guess.
Yeah, that's an okay thing too, I suppose.
I mean, it's, yeah, no, I just feel like it's on every other weekend practically, and every holiday there's always a Star Wars marathon. So you have to have at least seen some of the older ones. So one of my top movies I suggest to our audience, and this comes to no surprise to anybody who knows me at all, is Jaws. And that's because I literally have a scene of it tattooed on my leg. And I have loved that film since I was a kid. And it's one of those weird movies that has evolved in its love for it as I got older. And like I loved it as a kid because it was the shark movie, and I loved like the first half hour of it because that's where all the blood and gore is. And I think the first time I ever watched it was at the beach. So I mean, what better way to watch Jaws than at a beach and like up in New England somewhere. But then as I got older, I started falling in love with the acting, and I fell in love with the story and the 3-act structure you kind of get out of it. And then really I just like the shark. I mean, like the whole movie, you're like rooting for the shark in its own way. I don't think I ever rooted for Brody until I was probably 25. And then I was like, oh yeah, Brody's the one who's supposed to win. He's our hero. But I don't know. I just, it's one of those films that I think you have to at least see once. And I've seen it 3 times in theaters, and I got to see it. Oh, it was so exciting. So I got to see it there was a family behind me, and they had a little girl, and she was seeing it for the first time. And it was the coolest experience because she was gasping and like screaming at the right parts. And she was asking all the silly questions that I feel like it's great to have a kid seeing it. And she was like at that right age where she understood that the shark was the bad guy and the bad guy, and it was so cute because I went at the end of the movie, she was like, wait, that's the ending? And I'm like, yeah, it just swim back to shore. It was just really cool to experience like that. And I can't wait to like start, like I love watching it with people for the first time because I think I get to see it from their point of view. So definitely my big top movie to see.
That's a great one. I remember we had one of those scenes pointed out in one of our film classes, and it's when they're on the boat, and like I never noticed that was a one shot because like the background moves so much because they're like traveling and
rocking, like,
yeah. Once I noticed that, I was like, whoa, this is like so, it like added a whole nother thing to that scene, and it's so cool. But that whole movie is amazing.
Yeah, that's one of those movies where like I think the first time I watched it was on vacation, and I feel like I had a lukewarm response to it because I was like, oh yeah, this is good, but I don't know, there's something off about it. And I think it was when I saw it in theaters where it really like hit me. I was like, oh, this is like a perfect movie actually. Now I'm feeling it. It's weird. Like being in a movie theater really changes your perspective, oddly enough, about watching anything. It's like, especially if you're used to seeing it on a smaller screen, especially if it's an older movie, when you're seeing it the way it was meant to be seen, it's like it's incredible. It's nothing. It's like nothing else, really.
It's also
Especially the
like
classics.
better because the sound is so much better coming in a theater. Like, and that's like the cool thing about Jaws is it's the perfect blend of music and video and dialogue. It like and camera work. Like the
Mhm.
camera work like almost tells the music what to say. And it's just a beautiful blend of, I guess, art in its own way. I don't know. To me, that like is the epitome of film. And if you haven't seen it in theaters or if you haven't seen it at all, you definitely need to see it.
Agreed.
Yeah, yeah,
Thanks,
I can
guys.
endorse that.
Endorsed by Popcorn Buckets.
Stamp of approval.
All right, Sarah,
Uh,
what's your next one?
My next one probably doesn't have a stamp of approval from many, but it is one of my favorites. I wrote my senior thesis on it and the impact it had on the space science film, fiction film genre, and that is 2001: A Space Odyssey. It is
Yes.
gorgeous. I love it. Yes, it's boring, but I still love the story. Like I've seen it probably 5 times, which is way too many times to see that movie actually, because it's like it's a whole day. It's your day. But you know,
Yes, it is.
it's Kubrick, and I could say The Shining. I love The Shining. I could say Full Metal Jacket. I love Full Metal Jacket, but I have to say 2001: A Space Odyssey. Truly, every frame a painting. That movie is gorgeous, and I love, you know, the whole artificial intelligence taking over thing. It's great.
You can't go wrong with an AI as the villain. Like you really can't.
No,
It's a
no, no.
classic story.
I named my phone HAL 9000.
Oh, nice. I think that's what I did to one of my computers. I named it HAL 9000.
Yeah.
I was trying to find a new AI to name my devices.
He's
Sunny.
iconic.
I love
But yeah,
Sunny. That's my favorite AI. I'm weird. I really like iRobot. Okay.
I like iRobot a lot too. I
It's
love that
it's
movie.
it's a
It's
beautiful
not
film about
Mother from Alien.
Yeah.
no, no. Anybody who likes Mother is a sadist. Okay. No one should like Mother. And someone who loves Alien. No one should be rooting for Mother.
What
That
about
is
Ash? You're
true.
not going to root for Ash instead?
Never. If I'm going to, it's going to be David and Prometheus. So
Oh yeah, Michael Fassbender is
I
perfection.
love Michael Fassbender in Prometheus, classic AI. And I mean, come on, he strives to be like Peter O'Toole in Lawrence of Arabia. Like, what? Like, that's such a great scene when he's combing his hair blonde. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. That's my Prometheus hot take.
Thank you. We will
Of the
discuss
episode.
Prometheus in greater detail one day.
Another day.
I have opinions on that. But 2001, I love 2001: A Space Odyssey. I mean, that's one of the movies where I have a poster of it on my wall because it's like it's so impactful to film history in general, and it's one of those movies where I agree it's boring, but it's like it's cool though because of how important it is. It's one of those films where if you're looking for something in it, you will enjoy it a lot more than just trying to like sit down and watch it casually. It's not a casual watch. You have to realize that what you're watching is not really, it's not popcorn film. It's not really meant to just be, enjoyed. It's meant to be like thought over and labored over.
It's meant to be worshipped in its own way. Like
Do you want to work
like,
at your movies?
Yeah, exactly.
Watch 2001.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to sit through a laboring experience, then yeah, watch 2001.
Yeah. But hey, I mean, like if you like amazing music, I mean, this is the movie to watch. I mean, I have the soundtrack right here.
Oh,
I have it too. It's in my
yeah, it's literally just sitting here
mean,
because why not? It's
the
awesome. It looks
first
great.
5 minutes of the film, or I think it's like 5 minutes, the monkey scene is literally one of the most iconic scenes in all of film history. You at least have to see that scene because the moment where creature becomes man, I think, I don't know, he has a way of putting it and I can't remember what exactly his wording is, but oh, so good.
Oh, and so many scenes of that movie have been recreated from everything from like other science fiction films to cartoons and everything. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's one of those films where I think besides like Citizen Kane, it's probably the most like quoted film in
Yeah.
history probably.
Alrighty. Darrell, next film. What are
Let's
we
see.
thinking?
Let's see. Which one do I want to go on to? Let's see. I'm gonna
I
go with
changed
another
one of mine
classic.
so you could do yours because we have two
Oh,
of the same.
okay.
We had one of the same,
Oh,
so I
I
took mine
see.
off
I
and
see.
gave it another. So,
Interesting. I can't
spoiler
wait to
alert
get
for
to
the
yours
podcast.
because they're fascinating. So the next one I'm going to say is actually the one that was originally our double, Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh,
Mad Max Fury Road is to me like of my movies on my top 5, and they're also not in any particular order. That's probably like number 2. I I had never seen a Mad Max film before when I saw that movie. So I just like, oh, this is a cool trailer. I'm gonna go see whatever this is. Um and I had no idea it was going to be such like an awesome action spectacle. It looks amazing, it sounds amazing, it feels amazing when you're in just like a big theater and just like the seats are vibrating around you because of the power of the vehicles in that film. And it's like it's incredible. It has a standout performance by not Tom Hardy. He just doesn't say anything. I mean, he's there. He's there. But Charlize Theron, I mean, whew, that is
Hmm.
excellent. That is just like chef's kiss, like perfect performance. Like that was one of those movies where I was like, I now I understand why people love her so much. I get it. She perfectly embodies a character that just doesn't exist. Like that kind of person doesn't exist, and she makes it so real. I love it. Recently I watched even the black and chrome edition, courtesy of
oh,
Grace.
so
She
Hmm.
good.
gave me that version, and I was just like, even without color, and color is so important in that film, just it's beautiful. Even without color, it's just like this looks amazing. It's one of those films where it defies what you expect from storytelling. It's not really big on story at all. It's big on action and big on feeling. It grabs you by the neck basically and just like throttles you through 2 hours of just action and adventure. And all the while you never feel it never slows down to a point of like ridiculousness. It never tries to pontificate on some like huge grand ideas. It's just like this is a broken world, things don't make any sense. Just enjoy this ride because it's going to be really wild. So, I mean, that's another one where I have a poster of it in my room because, of course, I do. If I talk about it, I probably have a poster of it in my room somewhere.
And the other one, like, I really like about that, like, Charlize Theron is, oh my God, like, she embodies that character, like you said, and in a way that makes you not even question that she's acting. Like, it feels so real and like you're enveloped in her emotions throughout that entire film constantly. Like, you're made to feel what she's feeling. But the guy who plays the villain in the story,
Morning,
Morton
Joe.
Joe, actually I think he just passed
He
away,
did. He
yeah,
just
in the
Yeah.
beginning
died.
of December. But he was in one of the like original Mad Maxes as like another character, and so he was already part of the like
Yeah. He
uh,
was a villain in the
yeah,
second
he,
one.
yeah, and but him as a Morton Joe is just so I know this sounds really weird, but he's moving to me as a villain because like if you were in his position, wouldn't you have probably done the same thing? Like, I hate to
Yeah.
say that, but like he makes sense as a villain. Like, he's fighting for his women, like I hate to
Mhm.
say
Hmm.
that, but he's fighting for his legacy. And in its own way, it's almost romantic, in not in the romance love kind of way, but in like a storytelling type of way of
Yeah.
how we are constantly trying to improve the world for the next generation in its own way. And I know that's probably hot take about, but I love his character. Like, I think, and oh, that scene where it's been out since when
It's been 6 years. We got
6 years, okay.
time. Yeah.
um when his face gets ripped off.
Yes.
That scene is so cool. And I think about that scene. Like, that scene scarred me in the most emotionally positive way. And just that, like, oh, so good.
The line, remember me.
And honestly, even like that movie has a lot of quotable moments. I mean, like, shiny and chrome, that kind of thing. Like, witness me, witness me, that kind of thing. I love that. It all has like great moments that I think I say witness me like all the time. And I'm like, witness me. And then people are like, what are you talking about? Crazy. And I'm like, I know nothing about like VA cars or anything. But I'm like, yeah. Let's go run through the desert.
Yeah, I still have not seen any of the other Mad Maxes, but if I would have extended this to a top 10, Fury Road would be on there.
Oh
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like I've since seen the other movies and they're all good in various levels, but nothing beats Fury Road. Nothing beats that movie, in my opinion.
It's a film.
It is. It's like, truly a film.
I hate to say like and use that distinction, but it like the other like Road Warrior and things like that, they're made to be action movies and they're made to be, what they are, which is, cars and blood and fighting and explosions. Whereas this has all that, but it takes itself probably way too seriously, which I love about that film.
Yeah.
There's like a whole scene, like I was watching this video about it, and it takes the idea of chaos filmmaking and says no. And it's really cool because it basically is a car chase film. That's all, Fury Road is a car chase. And you watch other car chase movies, like let's say Fast and Furious, which I love the Fast and Furious movies. I'm in the middle of watching them all. I haven't seen them all, but I have enjoyed them. And you watch something like that, and the camera's all over the place, and it's like pow, 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 shot, 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 all these different shots and editing to make it a cohesive scene is chaos filmmaking in a weird way. It's chaos editing, basically. It's like, here's a wheel turning, and here's some skid marks, and here's, the driver going, and there's a terrified look, and then flip, 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 fake car exploding or something. Or if you're Michael Bay, a real car exploding and, jeopardizing the lives of crew members all over the place. But Fury Road just does it. Like, I mean, in its own like beautiful way, it has these, stunt crew that does all the stunts and the car stunts and the motorcycle stunts and everything. And it films it all in one very oriented pace.
Yeah.
That's what I really loved about that film.
I mean, it's honestly kind of a miracle of editing, really, because it's just, there's so much happening that it shouldn't, like, it's one of the movies I thought was going to be, like, it's probably cool, but it might be stupid. And I was surprised by just how cohesive and coherent everything was, because so much is happening that you'd think that you would just get lost. You'd think that it would just be a visual mess. But it's one of those few movies where whenever I see it, I'm always like, there's another detail I didn't notice, but it added so much to the overall film.
Oh, edited by a woman, by the way.
That too.
His wife, which is so cool. And then if you look at their repertoire, they also edited and directed Happy Feet. So,
which is always weird to think of.
Yeah, it is really weird.
And don't forget Babe, Pig in the City.
Oh, Babe, forgot about that. Classic.
Yeah, it's great that we're talking about these badass women because we're actually recording this on International Women's Day.
Oh,
we are. That's
we
true.
Totally meant to do that.
This was all planned.
Well, speaking of badass women, I guess I can lead that into another classic in my book is Silence of the Lambs. I think you probably both knew that was going to be in mine. So Silence of the Lambs is actually what inspired my thesis, which is kind of funny. We're both talking about that. Sarah and I both did theses in our communications major department on films and somehow got away with it. Don't know how we did, but we did. And Silence of the Lambs was what inspired the beginning of like my thought process behind it. on like the male gaze, and there's this whole thing. We don't need to go, maybe we can do another episode about it.
We'll
But
just talk about our thesis.
yeah, let me just like sit you down with my thesis. I'll read it out to you. No. It's really boring. Silence of the Lambs is one of those films where you mistakenly fall in love with the villain and you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to be rooting for the cannibal who, just served a bunch of people their friend. Like it's kind of that moment of panic when you're like, man, they really wrote this villain so beautifully. And not only do they write that villain, but they also write the other villain beautifully. And then the heroine of the whole story doesn't say a whole hell of a lot, but when she does, it's with purpose. And the dialogue between her and Hannibal Lecter, I don't know why I'm not saying his name like it's a spoiler. It's just a quippy way of finding this like, oh, this is how to make gory movies another level, I guess to say. I don't know. I also have a thing about how she fights the male gaze throughout the entire film, no matter who she's talking to, whether it's a woman or a man, but we don't need to talk about that. Not right now, at least.
Yeah, that's one of those films that I remember. It's one of those movies where you watch it and you're like, oh, I know what this is about, right? Of course I know. It's the guy who eats people. It's that movie. And then you watch it for the first time and realize, oh, this is so much more. All those ridiculous sequels that come afterward, which some are kind of fun in their own right, but it's just like you're surprised. I was so surprised to watch that movie and think, oh, this is so much more deep, so much more profound. Also, in a way, so much more violent than I somehow would have assumed. I think that movie kind of snuck up on me. But yeah, it's one that has always kind of stuck in my mind. Just the imagery, having such a wonderful villain and a wonderful protagonist, and not really knowing who exactly I care about the most in this scenario, because they're both interesting. They're both so completely interesting. Anthony Hopkins just kills it, along with Jodie Foster, who figuratively kills it, unlike Anthony. But it's just I want to watch it again. I haven't seen it in a while. That's like I just thinking about it always gets me kind of excited, because it's like that's filmmaking right there. This filmmaking.
That's one of those films, because when you were talking about like the first time you saw it, I was like, when was the first time I saw Silence of the Lambs? And when I was, a preteen, I used to have movie nights where I would go and find a scary movie my mom suggested, or the guy at Blockbuster suggested, and I'd bring it over to a friend's house, and it would be like, awkward, because it was like everybody was trying to dress nice because they were trying to impress the guys there, and the guys were wearing too much Axe spray and all that stuff. We don't need to go into that, but I remember watching Silence of the Lambs and us not paying attention to the entire movie until the last seconds of the film when she's in the dark and oh my gosh, Buffalo Bill has the binoculars on, the goggles or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're all just like screaming at the screen, like, turn around, he's right behind. I remember it just being like, I was fully engrossed in that build of tension. And and then you get this like cathartic, moment of like, well, then it's over. And you're like, and the movie's kind of like do, like done. But I just remember watching that and just being so impressed by how like quickly it sucked us in. So
yeah, actually, I have to tell my mom's story about this film for that, because that scene, she actually saw it in theaters, and she said, I didn't really know the meaning of being on the edge of your seat until I was watching that scene, and then she realized her hands were gripping the seat and she let go and relaxed. But the first time I watched that movie was upon my mom's recommendation. It was actually on Christmas Day, and my mom was like, I have the perfect movie. She put on Silence of the Lambs, and it was amazing. I've seen it so many times since, because it is such a good film. Yeah, all right, we'll bounce to number 3, and I guess right in the middle of my recommendations, we'll go why I'm a Wes Anderson stan, and that's gonna be Grand Budapest Hotel.
All
That
right.
is such a gorgeous movie with such amazing acting and like a killer cast, and it's just the story's great. I love the aspect ratio changes between the different like storylines and time periods to like keep you on track. I mean, it's so Wes Anderson in the best way, and it's probably his best film. I mean, I have my favorites from him, but that one is just it's on another level, I think. You know, Ray Fiennes, is that how you say his name?
Ray Fiennes.
Yeah, I think
Ray
it's Ray
Fiennes.
Fiennes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's so amazing in that. And
One
F.
of my
Murray
favorite
Abraham.
I love watching Ray Fiennes act. Like he can
Yeah.
speaking of Hannibal Lecter, he plays in a Hannibal Lecter movie, The Red
Oh, yeah,
Dragon.
Red Dragon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, he's so
Yeah.
cool in that movie.
It's kind of insane to see him
He
go
plays
from that and Voldemort to like he's very much not that in Grand Budapest Hotel, and
no.
he plays it beautifully. He's such an amazing character. He really just like he pulls that story all the way through, even though I don't even think it's about him. It might as well be because he really just takes over that whole movie. It's amazing. But you know, just the way Wes Anderson films and like, you know, the lengths he goes to just keep it very like real and authentic feeling. Like I don't know, it feels like how scrapbooking feels. Like it's just so textured and real, and I love it.
That's one of those. So that's my favorite Wes Anderson film as well. I like Fantastic Mr. Fox as well,
Mhm.
but I think it's also because I have a weird fascination with George Clooney. So I don't know why. I just like watching his movies just because I think growing up I always thought he was one way and then realizing all his films are different. I don't know. But Grand Budapest Hotel was one of those films that I was like, I don't really want to watch. It's a Wes Anderson movie, and it's like I like Moonrise Kingdom, and I like some of his other ones, and it's just kind of it's like one of those you watch to watch a art, I guess. But Grand Budapest Hotel felt like more than that to me. It wasn't just everything had purpose. It didn't feel like it was just him making choices. It felt like it belonged in that world. So like it felt like a Wes Anderson world come to life on screen. And I really like that. And I love the what's the kid's name? Hold on, I've got it pulled up. Give me a second.
Don't forget your favorite Jude Law.
That's right. Jude Law. Man, I always forget how big that cast is.
Bill Murray, he's in every one of them. So Bill Murray's there.
And what is this poor kid's name? Oh my god, I feel so bad that we don't know.
He has no name. He's just Boy. That's what his name is now. Let me see.
Oh my god, I forgot about Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Oh, and then like F. Murray Abraham is in that too. I love him in that movie.
That's the boy grown up.
Where is this poor kid?
Tony. His name's Tony Revolori.
Well, that doesn't help me. He's not on the top list.
He's in Spider-Man. So that's how I found them.
Which
I was
one?
Like, well, he's in Spider-Man Far From Home. He plays Flash.
Oh, he does play Flash.
Oh my god, I just watched that.
That guy.
I love those Spider-Man movies. Those are so much fun.
Yeah, I just rewatched them. It's so good.
But yeah, I love Grand Budapest Hotel. I think that was the second movie I had seen by Wes Anderson. I'm kind of in the same boat as Grace a little bit, where like I had seen Fantastic Mr. Fox and I really, really liked it. But I guess I was like, oh, that's a good movie. And I just kind of didn't think about him as a director any more than that. And I saw Grand Budapest and I was like, oh, what's this? What's happening here? It was a film, I think, probably because I hadn't seen a whole lot of other Wes Anderson films. It felt very different to me in a really good way. I was like, I'd never seen a movie that's quite like this one. And to Grace's point, it does feel very intentional, unlike some of his other films. Other films are all good. Most of the ones I've seen, at least, they're good. It's just that There's something about this one. I think part of it is honestly the scale of the film. The fact it takes place over several time periods kind of adds to my enjoyment of the film, because I feel like it really is telling a long, engrossing story about something. I don't know, it's one of the films I watched specifically because the Oscars were the next day, and I was like, I haven't seen this movie yet, let me watch this movie. And I was like, oh, that was actually really, really good. And I think it was my favorite one that year. I think Boyhood came out that year too, and I was like, God, I hate Boyhood, but I love Grand Budapest.
I hated Boyhood.
That's
Oh
on
my
my
God.
100 essential movies poster, and I'm not looking forward to rewatching it.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's on my
there are
poster
much
too.
better Linklater movies than Boyhood.
Yeah.
Like Dazed and Confused, which is one of my
which we watched recently.
I love Dazed and Confused.
It is so good.
Oh my gosh. All right, Darrell, next.
All right, so my next movie I'm going to say is Sunset Boulevard.
Ooh, we're going old school now.
That's right. Sunset Boulevard, directed by Billy Wilder, is one of those. It's one of those kind of random films I watched. I think I watched that when I was in college. I remember that because I was scrolling through Netflix. I saw this random movie called Sunset Boulevard, and I was like, I think I've seen this name before on like a top movies list. Maybe I should check it out. And I was just floored by the performances and the story and just like the grandness of the acting in that film. It's just like, oh, my favorite line is, it's like, I am big. It's the pictures have gotten small. It's just like, oh,
so good.
That's just how dramatic I want to be every day in my life. It's just that movie it's so funny, but also it's really dark and it's really uncomfortable in a lot of ways. It's a film that feels like it doesn't even belong in that time period almost. It feels rather modern, both in story structure, because it's not exactly it's mostly linear, but it's kind of like you start at the very end and you're like, all right, let's make our way back to see how did I end up floating in this pool here? Well, I'll tell you the story. And it's one of those films where as you're watching it, you kind of realize that it's so much more than just this guy with this older actress. It really is like this older actress is just like getting her claws into him, and he realizes like, I can't leave. I got to stay here. I have to remain here because this is like, I have the good life. It's a horrible life, but it's also a great life because I'm making as much money as I want. And it's like, it's so sad. It's so grand. It's funny, but it's depressing. It just has all these weird emotions that I feel whenever I watch it. I'd watched a movie that was similar to it a few years ago called Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. It has a very similar energy. Like it's very, very close, but it's just one of those films where I feel like there's nothing quite like it. There's nothing quite like seeing Norma Desmond just thinking that she's the greatest thing of all time, and literally the whole world has forgotten about her. She just so desperately wants to make a movie that will bring her back, and it's like no one cares, and it's so sad.
It's a beautiful film about grief in its own way, like mourning the loss of your past self. And like a lot of people are like, oh, Singing in the Rain is the perfect, like, for that era. It shows the difference between, silent films and talkies. Sunset Boulevard shows how sad it is.
Yeah.
It literally was the death of every silent film actor's, career. There were some that transitioned okay, but others that was it. And so they have these like brief flips in history, and then everybody just moved on.
Yep.
And
left behind.
Yeah.
Tears and rain.
Oh gosh. So good. I love that. And I love her. She's just a joy to watch because it's so immersive to watch her just like when she comes down in the staircase and that's like how I want to enter every room, that kind of thing. And she's just unapologetically herself. And I think that's why I love that film, because it takes this moment of like pure panic to make her realize like, oh my God, the world is moving without me. What do I do? What do I do? And
Like
it
her
boils over.
desperation is just so palpable. Like the fact that she doesn't just, it's not just that she needs like this man around to write a script for her. It's like, I need somebody with me. Please do not leave me. Like the as she like delves into insanity and this guy just like can't get out of it. It's just it's so thrilling. It's amazing. It's like so as a recommendation, please go watch Sunset Boulevard. It's one of those movies where it's like I will watch it with you, whoever you are. Let's go watch Sunset Boulevard. It's not even that long. It's like
No,
an
it's
hour
not
You
and
a
a
can
very
half.
watch it with
long.
me because I've
Have
gotten
you
my
seen it?
first recommendation.
You,
I've never seen it.
Oh,
oh my
nice. There
gosh.
we go. First
Movie
one of the
night.
evening.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That
I
you're
think you'd
definitely
love that.
missing out on that one. Is that on your list, Sarah?
No, no.
It's not. Uh,
Boyhood's on
But
your
I'm gonna
list,
watch it,
but
right?
Sunset Boulevard
oh.
is not.
It's just this very arbitrary thing that someone threw together and I scratch off with pennies.
I love it. So my next film that feel like I should share with the world. It's one of those films that I was going through a rough patch in my life and it made me fall in love with movies and filmmaking, and it made me go, oh, I want to make movies for a living and that's what I want to do. Insidious. So I'm a huge James Wan fan and like obsessively so, a little bit. Um and I adored every aspect of that film. I love the acting, I love the camera work, the editing is, the music is on another level, and also I just like that it exists in a fantastical world and doesn't apologize for it. Like it doesn't feel like it's not, like it's fantasy. Like we just believe that you can travel in your dreams and walk with scary demons and ghosts, and it never once makes you question this like moment of like, oh, that's not something people do. And then I mean, I love Lin Shaye. I think Lin Shaye is a godsend to horror cinema. And that's the older lady, that's the clairvoyant lady. So she just, ever since she was in that movie, I've adored watching her act. And I think about how she had this great life and then suddenly became super famous in horror films because she's been nonstop since Insidious. I mean, she's been in all of the Insidious films, and she was in The Grudge as well. I think the most recent Grudge. I think it was The Grudge. Yes, because I saw it in 2020. It was one of the films I actually got to see in 2020. And then Lee Winnell, who is a screenwriter and director and actor who I love to watch in anything he does. I've always been fascinated with his career, starting with Saw and then moving on to grand things. And he has this movie called Upgrade, which I think is a film that we should talk about eventually because it's a sci-fi gore movie. It's not a horror film, I wouldn't say, but it's sci-fi, and it's so unapologetically Lee Winnell, because you go, oh yeah, that makes sense. The guy who wrote Saw wrote this film and directed this. So it's just, it makes sense. But Insidious is a film that you could watch for editing, you could watch it for cinematography, you could watch it if you were looking for acting, choices, or even just like great dialogue. So good, so good.
I think I've only seen it once, but I saw it with you because you made me watch it, and I really liked it, but I need to see it again.
Oh my gosh, it was in my thesis as well.
Yeah,
so
every movie on this list is someone's thesis.
Yeah. Sorry, Darrell.
I don't have a thesis. I got a degree, but I did not have to do that. They said go make a movie.
You got to make a movie. You know, at least that's something fun.
Yep, and
So,
you will never see it. No one will ever
I let
see
you
it.
read
You
my
won't see mine
thesis.
either.
No, yours is good.
Well, I actually haven't seen Insidious. I've only seen, weirdly enough, I've only seen the second one because I was with a group of people and like, let's watch Insidious, the second one. I was
Oh,
like,
that's
oh,
sad because
okay,
the
that's
second one is
weird.
only great because it's perfectly like a sequel.
It's
Like,
one of those movies where like you don't, if you haven't seen the first one, you're like, okay.
yeah, I can't imagine seeing that without seeing the first one because the whole point of it is that it slots perfectly into the first one. Because it like exists in the same timeline, like it's going at the same time as the first one in its own
Oh, it's a
way.
parallel story.
Yeah,
That's the idea behind it. Okay, see, I didn't know
it's like a
that.
future
Haven't seen
parallel
two.
story.
All right, so number 4 is Spirited Away. That's my choice for animated
Lovely.
film. I had to put one in there in my top 5. And I love Spirited Away. I love, Hayao Miyazaki in general. He's a genius. Like I said earlier, I've kind of caught up on all of them. And yeah, I'd not watched Porco Rosso just because I thought it was so weird. But man, if you haven't seen that movie, see it. It's so good. But anyway, Spirited Away is just gorgeous. I feel like it tells a story in a way that is so different from what you're used to just because of like all of the Japanese folklore that's in it, and like it's it's a really beautiful story of like getting lost and like trying to grow up, and everyone's felt that feeling of like losing their parents in the grocery store or something, and Spirited Away kind of takes that to another level. But just like it's this crazy little adventure. It's I mean, the art is amazing and every bit of it's gorgeous. The characters are crazy and fun, and I just love it. I think it's probably my favorite Hayao Miyazaki. That was actually really hard to pick. It was kind of between Spirited Away and Ponyo because I just love Ponyo. But yeah.
I've never seen Spirited Away. So I've seen Kiki's Delivery Service. And that was one I grew up with, but
Yeah.
I've never seen any of the other Miyazaki films. So
Really?
maybe it's
Ooh.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, a binge
we have a big
Saturday.
marathon.
Yeah, but
that's
I've
like
only
3
ever
days.
seen Kiki's. So I mean, like I know the idea behind some of the other films, like the bigger ones. What is it? Totoro.
Yeah.
I know like the idea behind that one, and I, like I've heard someone just like get really mad that it's called Totoro and it's not called Cat Bus. Like I know, like I know the basics, but I've never seen it. So yeah.
I love Spirited Away. I think that was maybe the third Miyazaki film I'd seen, because I remember the first one would have been Kiki's Delivery Service also, because it came out when we were born basically. So we've all seen it. But then I remember watching Princess Mononoke and thought, whoa, this is super violent. This is awesome. But Spirited Away was the first one I saw where I was like, wow, this is just like beautiful. This is so cool. Because I mean, that was one of those films, because I believe it was, I forgot what historical thing it was. Was it like the first like animated like Japanese anime film to win like best animated feature or something like that it never happened or something like that? But and you can see why when you watch it, because first of all, it looks amazing. The story, I love what you say, Sarah, about like losing your parents in like a grocery store. That's exactly what the movie feels like. That is 100% what it's like. Because seeing this girl who's like, your parents have been turned into pigs, and she's just like, oh, okay, well, this is horrible. I hate everything. I didn't want to talk to them. Now they're pigs. What do I do? And just being like, all right, now you're gonna work for us if you want your parents back. And it's just the world building in that. I love the world building in Miyazaki films, but that one in particular, because it feels so it feels so fantastical, and yet feels so real, because everyone has like a purpose. There's a reason behind everything. And it's, of course it's an iconic film, so ideally you would just watch it just because you've heard it's pretty cool. But
yeah,
it's an amazing story. It's a wonderful story, wonderful characters. it's a movie that makes me smile whenever I watch
Yeah.
it.
It's like one of the great things about like all of Miyazaki's films is that they just like throw you into this world and everything is just so fantastical that you just accept it. Like it's just that's how things are, and like there's no questions, like you go along with it, and it's
Mhm.
every single one of them. It's just an amazing journey.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's funny. I've only seen probably like maybe 8 of Miyazaki's films or so. But I know I'd love to talk more about them at some point because like one of my favorites, probably just under Spirited Away, is like Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind.
Oh my god, I love Nausicaa.
I I love that movie so much. It's just such
Hmm.
like
This is going right over my head.
I'm sorry,
We're gonna
Grace.
do we're gonna do a
Yeah,
It's
Ghibli
okay.
episode, so
we're
you better
definitely gonna
watch
have to
it.
do a marathon
I'll
because
I'll start my watching.
like that I don't know, those movies just they're always so interesting and they're all so different too. So that's all I'll
Mhm.
say about it. But it's great.
All right, Darrell,
All
what's your
right.
fourth?
Well, to go actually on Sarah's theme of animated films, I'm gonna go with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh,
Yes.
that's
That
like
So
oh,
that movie, I think about that movie every single day of my life. Ever since I saw it. That was a film that one of my friends actually kind of was telling me, "Hey, we should go like you should go see it." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure, I'll go see it." I mean, Spider-Man, of course I'll go check it out. But that movie made me fall in love with Spider-Man as a character, and not just Miles Morales' version, but Peter Parker's version. I was like, I have been missing out on such an amazing just set of characters. It was first of all, the animation is stunning. Never seen anything like it ever before. It's just I was just like flabbergasted when I first saw it. Just like even the opening title of like it has like a very like comic booky opening title where it just like kind of goes through pages and pages and stuff, and it's just like this is so cool. This is so cool. The story is like so fun and so interesting, and
for anybody
you don't
listening to
expect
audio, by
anything.
the way, Darrell is having like an aneurysm right now.
I'm like flailing like a madman here. I just love this movie so much. It's crazy. It has like some awesome twists. Just like I really don't want to talk about the twist because it is just when when I saw this movie and saw some of these things happen, I was like, oh my god, I didn't know that was gonna happen. Like it filled me with so much joy. I watched that movie like probably 4 or 5 times in theaters. Every time I saw it, I was like, you got to come see it with me this time. You got to come and see it with me this time. Everybody, I just brought everybody to go watch this movie every single time because it made me feel so good about watching the movie. And it took a long time to actually find. I think that movie came out in 2018 or 2019.
Mhm.
And that year, I remember thinking, wow, wow, none of these movies really are interesting. None of them have hit me, except for Blind Spotting that year. Blind Spotting was really good. But then I saw Spider-Man. I was like, never mind. Number one, this is perfect. I have found the best movie I've ever seen. Everybody can stop now. I don't know why you're still making art when this exists.
No one else has to make a movie ever again. Spider-Man Into
Exactly.
the Spider-Verse
It's the greatest
exists.
thing.
I that was one of those films that like I took Ross, like he's my child. No, Ross is my husband, but Ross and I were like, let's go see, Spider-Man's my favorite superhero. I've always loved Spider-Man. I admittedly loved both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Mans, but yeah. But it
How
wasn't,
dare you?
yeah, it was also just it was one of those films that I felt like I was on a roller coaster the entire time. I also loved that it wasn't what I was expecting it to be, which was a Spider-Man film. It was a
Mm.
film about a boy named Miles Morales who just happens to be a version of Spider-Man. And I love that. I love that
Mhm.
it's about him growing as a teenager and, dealing with feelings and emotions and, just trying to be cool and like parent issues and dealing with his dad, and, all these different things. And then poor thing gets bitten by a spider. And honestly, like the sound design, like I just had chills just thinking about the sound design for what's the not the villain, but the his uncle. which I hate to
Oh,
say.
oh yeah, Uncle Aaron, the Prowler,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Prowler.
The
I'm
Prowler has
sorry
like
if you
such an
haven't seen
amazing.
it, but
That's kind of an obvious one though,
that
and
one
if
if
you
you
watch
should
if you read the
know.
comics, you'll know.
Yeah, well,
That's not the big twist that I'm thinking
that
of. Though.
isn't
There's
okay.
another one. There's another
But
one.
I mean that one's pretty obvious. I feel like you kind of guessed that one. But
Yeah, and you're
the
supposed to.
Prowler's theme music is
Mm,
chilling. It's like it has its own, like I feel like that's playing in the world. Like it's not
yeah,
like he has his own speaker set behind him that's playing that because he never says anything. Like I love that. Oh, that I want to go rewatch that film. I think I'm gonna go watch that after this.
good idea. Please do.
Yeah, there are some movies and it's like you watch them and then it's like, yeah, that was all right. And then you like watch again and you're like, damn, that was good. No. Into the Spider-Verse, everyone I've talked to left that movie like, holy crap, that is the best movie I've seen this year, and maybe the year before it, maybe the year before that, because it was so good.
I
Like
still jam out
it
to
was
Sunflower
faultless.
like it was still
Oh
like the
yeah.
top #1 song.
I mean, even the goofy parts are amazing. Like Spider Pig, John Mulaney is
Oh
fantastic.
yes.
Nick Cage
Nick
as
Cage as
Spider
Spider
Noir.
Noir.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Ah,
god. Oh my god. All of it is so good. And
like like most of that movie I feel like just shouldn't work, but it does.
yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
works. It's amazing how they're able to bring so many disparate ideas together. Because it's like, first of all, you're doing with an African American / Puerto Rican Spider-Man, which is like,
Already
that's
right there, full stop.
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, okay, I'm on board.
Yeah.
Being black, I'm like, yes, I want that, please, thank you.
Yeah.
Like that already makes the story already completely different than what we're used to seeing, because we're used to seeing, classic Uncle Ben dies, great power,
Ugh.
great responsibility. Great story, but it's one we've seen a million times. And it's nice to see
Mhm.
something that's different. It has similar beats, but it's different, and it makes you feel like, wow, there's actually more to this universe than I ever really thought there was. And the fact that it happens in like alternate reality compared to what we're used to with Spider-Man is also really, really impressive. But I don't know, it's just so many things about that work. Like I remember when after I saw the movie, for the next year, I was listening to the soundtrack, like, and I don't just mean like the music made specifically for the movie, like Sunflower. I mean like the actual score. I would listen to score
Mhm.
every single day for like the entire year. I just couldn't get enough of it. Like Daniel Pemberton just did an amazing job. I never heard of the guy until that, and I was like, yes, perfect. This is great. I could gush about that movie all day. That's one of those films where, like, if we ever do like a superhero movie episode,
Mhm.
that's one to definitely
And
dig
We
even
have
into
just
to
like
shrink it
more.
down a little bit because
yeah.
there's a lot of superhero
Yeah,
movies.
Yeah.
it's like, well, there are a lot we
Yeah.
can skip. There are a lot that are
Yeah.
not worth talking about.
No, like Green
But like,
Lantern,
oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
no,
which was
no.
shot at our college.
It sure was.
yeah, which is ridiculous.
But even as like an animated film, like in the era of Pixar and everything, like trying to be almost live action movies and like their realism and everything, like
Mhm.
Into the Spider-Verse just embraced that it was an animated movie, just like the pows and like the
Yeah.
color and all of it. Like it was,
Oh,
I
and the
wish
glitch
more
stuff,
animated movies,
so
yeah,
Mhm.
cool.
I wish more animated movies did that now because like it felt like such a comic book movie, and that, goes back to why I love Scott Pilgrim so much, but like it
But it's
really just
different.
embraced it. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's like an amazing thing, because after that movie came out, I feel like animation companies took notice and were like, "Oh, we're animated, right? We can do whatever we
We can have
want.
fun.
Yeah, we could have fun." Like I have noticed there's been kind of a resurgence in movies like that. There's a movie coming out that was originally called Reconnected. I think it's called like The Johnsons versus the Machines now. It's going to be on Netflix later this year. But I saw the trailer for it and I was like, they saw Spider-Verse and thought, let's make it cool like that, because it has a very like they're very, very playful with their animation style, and they play around with styles, and I love seeing that in movies, especially after so long of just seeing kind of the same thing. It's just nice to see something different. It's nice to be different.
Yeah.
All righty. I think, am I on 4 or have I done 4? No, I'm
You're
on
on
4.
4.
All right. So to throw a wrench in my list, which have all been pretty much horror films or at least some form of horror genre. My next big one that I think you guys should all see is Wizard of Oz.
Okay, didn't see that coming.
All right.
Throwing that
I
one out
did.
there. I grew up, that was the first film my mom said that I ever sat and watched. She said that I would be moving too much and she would put on Wizard of Oz and that was it. I was done for an hour and a half. And I love that film because I mean, like, I get all the like crazy things about it, and there's so many lores, and there were a lot of problematic things going on in history at that point. But just that movie itself is so whimsical, and it's a product of its time. Like, don't get me wrong, because if it was made today, it would be completely different. We'd have CGI Cowardly Lion, like the cats, and from the movie Cats, and we'd be talking about why was his butthole, taken out of the film or something like that. But I just believed as a kid that was a scarecrow walking. Like, Ray Bulger was a scarecrow, and I believed that he was a Tin Man, and it was one of those films that just made me, as a human being, throw away everything I knew as reality and let myself believe that a Tin Man, all he wants is a heart. And that being the saddest moment in the whole thing is that we create things that don't have things like a brain and a heart and courage. And I think that in itself is heartbreaking. And then also you get to the Wicked Witch of the West, who is a classic villain. And I obsess over Margaret Hamilton's performance. And I think that I feel so bad for her because she was typecast forever as the Wicked Witch of the West. Like, she never got to do pretty much, like, she has other things in her repertoire and filmography, but like, she was the embodiment of the Wicked Witch of the West. And I love her for that. Like, I think that, people would resent that, and she would show up to like meet and greets with fans or something like that, and kids would run in terror because they really thought she was the Wicked Witch of the West. And I just yeah, sometimes I just want like my world to go into full color, like it felt like that moment where you go from sepia tone to full color is a moment that I still cherish to this day. That feeling of here you go, here's the beauty. So that's a weird one, I know.
It's one I feel like probably most people have seen. I mean, I know I saw it when I was really young, and I've seen it a couple of times since. Well, Ross is weird.
Yeah, Ross dropped that. We have a whole wall dedicated to Wizard of Oz in our house, and he dropped that bomb on me like a week into our marriage. He was like, "Oh yeah, I don't think I've ever seen the Wizard of Oz." And I think you were there, Darrell, and I went,
yeah.
I was so upset. I was like, other movies I could accept, but my always on my top 5 favorite list is Wizard of Oz. So I'm gonna rectify that situation eventually.
Well, I have a bombshell then to drop.
Oh no.
Because I've seen most of it, but I've never seen it all the way through. Like, I have a vague memory of seeing it in like a hospital. It being like, I know this is the Wizard of Oz, but I know I'm not seeing the whole thing. Like, I know I've never seen all of it. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. I've seen bits and pieces. I need to watch the whole thing though. I feel bad about it.
No, don't feel bad. We're not shaming on not seeing films, because I've admitted about films that I haven't seen. Sarah hasn't seen some films. We're okay. Everything's okay. We'll just rectify the situation another day. Alrighty, so our final movies. Let's see what we got. We've built up to this.
Number 5. What was number 5?
Sarah, I know what yours is.
Yes. My number 5 is another science fiction movie because I love science fiction movies, and that is Blade Runner. I love Blade Runner. I think it's gorgeous. It holds up. You can watch it now, and it feels like it was made last year. Like, it is just, the story is so amazing. The acting is so great. Like, I love every bit of it. And hot take, Blade Runner 2049 is also amazing. I
Yeah.
didn't think that they could make a sequel that many years later and it be that good, but it is also gorgeous, and I think it accompanies the original just so well. But yeah, I love Blade Runner. It's like what I want my dark futuristic sci-fi to look like neon and grunge and just the costumes, just all of it's amazing.
I think that's the epitome of what everybody hopes. Like, I hate to say that the future looks like, because we shouldn't hope for that.
No.
But in my mind, like, it's like these giant neon billboards and these advertisements like flashing in front of your face that in
Mhm.
my mind, like, and this like giant woman coming out of a billboard and like, luring you. Like, it's just so beautiful. And also not at all. Like, I don't want that. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I love Blade Runner. Blade Runner is one of those ones that I've only seen like maybe 1 or 2 times, and I'm pretty sure they were both with you, Sarah. Because I'm pretty sure you were like, "What? You haven't seen Blade Runner?" and shoved it on the DVD player, and you were like, "Watch." And I'm like 3 beers into a beer binge, and you're like, "Watch it now, sober up." So, but yeah, and Harrison Ford. I just love a good Harrison Ford film.
Blade Runner is so funny to me because I feel like every time one of you says a movie, I'm like, well, here's my anecdote about this movie. Like, let me tell you my history with this film. But I feel like I remember a lot of these, like when I first saw them. So I remember seeing Blade Runner, watching it when I was living in Texas. I hated that movie the first time I saw it. I hated it. Kind of like 2001, actually. I hated 2001 when I first saw it. I did not like it at all. And I was like, I don't understand why people love this movie. This is ridiculous. This is horrible. And I think it was probably like a couple years ago. Actually, I think it was right before Blade Runner 2049. I got a chance to rewatch it with one of my friends. And I was like, it's one of those films where I saw that and I was like, I get it now. I'm just reminded like of like what a perfect like vision. Because I think that that Ridley Scott's vision for that movie is so clear that it's probably the best realized world I've ever seen in a movie. And Blade Runner 2049. So love that movie so much. That's the whole reason. Oh God, the opening shot of that movie, just seeing that in the movie at AMC was just literally eye opening. There's an eye opening in the beginning of the film. It was amazing. But it's just one of those worlds that's so forgettable. Like whether or not you like the movie or not, it's just like you'll never forget this movie. It's just so what they did with it. The performances are great, especially with such kind of strange material. Yeah, I liked that movie. I was a convert. I was lost, and now I can see the glory of Blade Runner.
I love it.
So my last movie on my list is to take a sharp turn away from everything we're talking about is Schindler's List. Schindler's List.
I was thinking about Schindler's List.
Yeah, Schindler's List is, I mean, it's one of those odd movies where I think it is Steven Spielberg's masterpiece. I think it is basically a perfect film. It's so hard to watch. It's very difficult to watch because it's painful. It's a very painful movie to see, but it's so well realized. It's one of those films that made me realize truly the horror of a real situation, something that actually happened. We had to watch that for my world history class in high school. It was the first movie I watched in one of my high school classes. The second one was Osmosis Jones, but the first one was Schindler's List. So I was very happy to watch something nicer after that. But when I first saw that movie, I was like appalled by just like what I think when I was in middle school, I didn't learn a whole lot about world history in general. So I knew about the Holocaust, but I didn't know how bad it really was. And watching that, I was like, oh, this is what actually happened. This is not a fictional scenario. This is legitimately real. And that movie has probably my second favorite John Williams soundtrack. And I always feel bad because I love listening to it. And I feel so bad because it's like, I wish I didn't have to love this amazing soundtrack. This is something that actually happened. But Steven Spielberg, it was clearly a very personal film to him. Weird because he was making Jurassic Park like right before or right after this. But it's very personal to him, and you can tell that he took it incredibly seriously. It looks, you have so many amazing performances by, actually, funny enough, by Voldemort again,
Ralph
and
Fiennes
Liam
is,
Neeson.
oh my gosh, like it's scary in that film. Like I think that's his scariest performance, because I remember watching that and being utterly repulsed.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never like wanted to like throw something at a movie screen before, or like yell and scream, but his performance as, I believe, Amon Girth, I think is how you say it, correct?
I think that's his name.
Yeah. It's just, oh, like it gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, and like the scene where he's taking pop shots out on when he's not, he has no top on and his guts hanging out and he's drinking a beer. And it's just this moment of like, because that's real, because that the shot of him, that like the most famous picture of that man is that scene, which is crazy to me. And it just, oh, like I have goosebumps. Like I'm just thinking about it. It's, and you're right. The music is utterly like heart-wrenching. Like you can listen to that soundtrack without having ever seen the movie, and you just feel the sorrow and you feel the emotion behind it. And it just perfectly fits for not only that film, but the horror behind what really happened.
Yeah, it's a visceral experience all around. Everything about that. I watched it again for the second time only, probably like 2 years ago, because it's like after high school I was like, I want to watch it again, but I kind of can't. And so I finally watched it again, and I was still dumbstruck by just how wonderfully realized the film was, and just how respectful it was, despite, I don't know, it's because the thing is, it's hard, that's a very, very hard subject matter to cover in a serious way that doesn't feel exploitative in any way. And he did just such an amazing job of that. Like, I still think that if it's like, although he gave us like Raiders of the Lost Ark, like if there's one movie that I think like you have to watch if you really want to know like who is Steven Spielberg as a director, watch Schindler's List, and you'll be like, oh, this is who we're dealing with. He can do so much, and he knows exactly when to hold back, and he knows exactly when to go full force on something. So please watch.
I will, because I haven't.
What?
Okay, well,
oh my god,
yeah. Schindler's List is on my movie poster, so
I'm not gonna say I want to watch that with you. I don't.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna watch that with you.
I know that I have to watch it alone, and
yeah, that's like a rainy day. You're already feeling bad about yourself, but you just need.
I'm prepared, but
yeah,
I still
it's also 3 hours long. So
it's super long. Yeah, I watched that film in my history class.
DVDs.
Yes,
not
2
even
DVDs.
VHS,
yeah,
2 DVDs.
Back in the day, folks, for all those kids back, we used to have these things called DVDs, and some films were so long that they needed 2 of them.
You ever heard Titanic?
Titanic
was on 2 discs.
Yeah.
I was on. Yeah, I had that on 2 VHS tapes.
Yeah, I did too. That's how I first watched it.
Lord of the Rings, I'm pretty sure, was one of the 2 discs, at least the original time. I'm trying to see what else I got right here. I think Lord of the Rings is the only one I can remember. Oh well. Now that we're talking about Schindler's List, and that being one of the films you at least need to see once in your life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw this in a complete twist and completely deviate from my norm. My last film that I think you guys should see is Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. The Rock and Kevin Hart and Jack Black, and I know it sounds silly. I also like, I love the original Jumanji, don't get me wrong, but it's a different film completely, and it's on its own. It stands on its own, and that's fine. But this film is one of those films, and Darrell knows this, I'll put on just to watch something. That's like one of those films, like people have their comfort TV shows. That's my comfort movie. That and Pride and Prejudice, but which are on opposite sides of the spectrum. But I absolutely adore that film with how unapologetically modern it is, and that it will definitely not hold up. And that's okay. Like, and I kept telling, when I first saw it, I was like, you need to see it now while it's funny and relevant. Like you need to see it while it's relevant. And then even, I don't know how many years ago it came out, like 2 or 3 years ago, it's still funny. And the sequel is just as good as the first. Like I really enjoyed Next Level. Yeah. I thought I actually avoided seeing it because I liked the first one so much. I waited until like a year later for me to see the next one, and then I was like, oh my god, it's just as good. And it's sweet and it's lighthearted, and it's a film that just, you take it at face value as they're sucked into a video game. And I get it, there are definitely plenty of top movies you need to see, but this film is just, it's quippy and it's fun, and it has its own way of just being real, I guess. And I just love the performances. I don't know. Jack Black is great. It was
hilarious.
So
I loved
that's
it.
my weird one.
I think both of them are just like a really good reason to go to the movies. Like I saw both of those in theaters, and they're just such a blast. Like they're really fun.
I saw the first one on Christmas. So it was
perfect.
That's like a family tradition that honestly we haven't done in 2 years, but on Christmas Day we normally go to the movies and see like something like super family oriented. And that was like that Christmas I went and saw, and I just remember like going, oh, I'm gonna go see this silly movie. Like I remember not wanting to see it because I was like, oh, it's so like, it's gonna be like not, honoring the like last one. And I remember like, how could you make a Jumanji without Robin Williams, like, and then they made it. And I remember leaving that movie theater and going, that is the funniest and heartwarming film I've seen in a long time. And I think it was also just like a comedy that I didn't feel like had anything to do with sex or drugs or, I mean, it had some funny, potty humor, like it had a couple of, not fart jokes or anything, but, but it was so authentic that it was okay. And I didn't go, oh my God, like, they just made a penis joke, it's funny. And it made me like go, okay, this is what seeing a movie in theaters is supposed to be like. It's supposed to be you laughing at the screen, watching with popcorn and just having a good time. I miss going to the movie theaters. So it's already seen in my next film in movie theaters, which is on the opposite side of the spectrum. So I'm taking Darrell to go see 10 Commandments.
Yeah, that's our next movie on like March 20 something.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
But I think that's all the time we have right now. Now that we've droned on for probably about an hour and a half, I hope people find us interesting so that we can keep talking. My name is Gracie, and you can find me at Gracie May. That's with a Y and 3 E's on anywhere you see fit, like literally any social media. You can find me on that. Darrell, where can we find you?
You can find me at Darth Darrell on Twitter. I think that's the only place where you can really find me. I want you to find me. So Go ahead if you want to see me post once every month about some random thing.
Or my tags, because I normally tag Darrell.
That's true. That's true. That's how I get my news.
And Sarah, where can we find you?
I am at snotty.person on Instagram and at snotty_person on Twitter, but I don't really post a lot on Twitter. And both of those are with an IE instead of a Y. So yeah, y'all can find me there.
And then you can check us out for the latest movie news and opinions, because let's just say we're an opinion podcast, at the Popcorn Bucket List on Instagram and at TPB_podcast on Twitter, or you can just find us wherever social media you use, because I'm pretty sure we also have Facebook and YouTube, TikTok. I don't know anymore. There's so many that someone just was like, "Hey, do you have Dispo?" And I was like, "What is that?" And I felt like my age was showing, because I was like, I don't keep up with it. So. But all right, guys, it was lovely chatting with you, and I look forward to recommending more movies to our movie needing friends. So y'all have a wonderful rest of your week, and hopefully we have a good rest of International Women's Day. So watch a good movie with a what's the word I'm looking for? Horror heroine or a woman. No, I'm recommending you watch Insidious. That's what you should watch for
Mad Max Fury Road. Try that.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, why not both?
And watch Scott Pilgrim for Ramona Flowers.
Oh yes, definitely do that.
No, just for Brie Larson. That's the only thing you need. Audrey Plaza is also in that, so you can just watch it for that. All right, guys. Well, I'll see y'all later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.